The 90s were full of serial killer films. Before podcasts like Serial and Netflix shows like Making a Murderer catapulted true crime murder mysteries into living room conversations, Jonathan Demme's Silence of the Lambs set off a craze of Hollywood movies that focused on serial killers and the people looking for them. This wasn't entirely new. Specifically, murder has always been a salacious narrative plot point in cinema, but Silence of the Lambs did something different. Not only did it win like every Oscar, it played as a two-hander, spending almost as much time with the killer as it did with the FBI agent tracking him down. Not every film going forward followed this formula. Seven, another huge movie from that time, spent the majority of its runtime from the perspective of the detectives searching for the killer, and Natural Born Killers turned the genre on its head by spending almost its entirety of its runtime with the killers themselves. It dove deeper into their psyche and started playing jump rope with the tenets of realism and formalism. But one movie from 2000 did something completely different, something we hadn't seen before, or at least not often in these types of movies. It looked at the killer, not just through the lens of his sadomasochistic actions, but also through the lens of empathy. If you're maybe a collector of physical media like I am, you probably know that the 2000 film The Cell, directed by Tarsem Singh, recently got a 4K restoration released by Arrow. I did not watch this movie on its 4K release. I watched it on VHS, the way God intended. The Cell is the feature film directorial debut from Tarsem Singh, a director who got his start in commercials and music videos before being given a $30 million budget to make an outrageously strange, that I can only describe as Victorian Gothic sci-fi punk crime thriller. The Cell stars Jennifer Lopez as child psychologist Catherine Dean, Vince Vaughn as FBI agent Peter Novak, and Vincent D'Onofrio as Carl Rudolph Strager in just an absolutely unhinged role. Seriously, we don't give this actor enough credit. I know he's turned into TV procedurals. He's on a CSI or a Law and Order, one of those, I don't really know. But his role in The Cell, his part as Gomer Pyle in Full Metal Jacket, and even his take as a bug in Men in Black, they're all these wildly different portrayals that are absolutely spot on. This guy has an immense amount of range that I don't think I fully understood until watching this film, The Cell. The Cell is not an easy watch. It goes to some pretty dark places. D'Onofrio's character, Carl Strager, is a serial killer who kills victims in torturous ways. He kidnaps, then traps them in a half-glass enclosed cell for about 40 hours before filling that cell up with water, all while cameras record their final moments before they pass away. Afterwards, Carl lays their dead body on a table, suspends himself above through a series of change and self-pierced hooks, and pleasures himself while a tape of their death plays. Yeah, it's pretty freaking dark. I would hate to know what's going on inside that guy's head. Oh, well, that's the entire premise of this movie, The Cell. Lopez's character, Dr. Catherine, uses a new technology that isn't fully explained to enter the mind of the subconscious of her patients. It's actually kind of refreshing seeing this technology just presented without any long or drawn-out exposition about how it works or why it was developed. The film begins with her in the mind of a young boy, a patient with a form of schizophrenia that's left him paralyzed, as she tries to coax him out of his mind-induced paralysis. Why does she have to wear a totally red suit for this procedure to work? Why does her mask look more like a cheap paper towel than an incredibly sophisticated piece of tech? Why do both parties need to be suspended in the air for this to work? None of that is ever explained, but who cares? It looks cool, and we're given just enough information to understand the plot and the world this film takes place in. Vince Vaughn, in a wildly miscast role, plays the detective searching for Strager, and surprise, he finds him in the first act. But double surprise, Strager is also a schizophrenic who has entered the same type of paralysis as Lopez's child patient. Maybe that wouldn't be too big of a deal, but there is a new girl that is missing, and the FBI now has no idea how to find her until someone remembers that there's this new weird technology that allows Jennifer Lopez, and I guess just Jennifer Lopez, to enter other people's subconscious. And now we have the plot. One of the things I love about this movie, and a lot of these older movies in general, is This does not have an easy to pitch story. So many movies and show now feel like the idea just started with a great pitch and then everything just dribbled out from there. People now want everything so fast and they need to be hooked immediately. So a movie like this was pitched today, one where there's a new technology that is never explained. It's not a futuristic world. Everything is kind of the same except this one piece of tech. And we have a child psychologist who's the only one who can use it. And she has to enter the mind of a serial killer to find his latest victim. And oh, also the guy from Swingers is here as a cop. It would have never left the pitch room. But somehow in the 90s, a music video director was able to pitch and get it funded. Early on in the film, Lopez states she wants to reverse the feed on her child patient to bring him into her mind palace or whatever. That's ultimately the trick they pull in the third act of this film to battle Schrager and free him some sort of his demons. But it points directly to one of this film's main themes, and it's one which we don't see a lot of in films like this, and that's empathy. Vaughn, he plays the heavy in this film. He's a former district attorney who lost a case against a prolific child predator that then went on to kill a victim right after that trial ended. Lopez, the lead in this film, is much less concerned with the actions the killer is taking than she is with why he is doing such things. When she first enters his mind, she's greeted by a child version of the killer, one who was beaten and tortured by his father. He was called names and slurred. It's inferred that he may be queer, though that's never outrightly stated. He's beaten with belts and hot irons. All of these traumatic experiences have influenced his current behavior. The film doesn't make any grand notions about how to fight these problems. There's no soapbox moment about better funding for child protective services or plans for a more robust program to spot disturbing behavior in young people. But there is a general theme that the context around these crimes are important. We can't truly stop these types of crimes until we understand the root cause of their evil. That's literally the point of this movie, diving deep into emotional and physical trauma to get to the root of why this person is able to commit such unspeakable evil acts. It's something we get a little of in Silence of the Lamb, with Hannibal Lecter acting as this sort of sage guide to understanding that killer's instincts, but even in that movie, there's no empathy in their analysis. It's presented as, here are the facts, and this is how we can catch them. While The Cell says, here are the facts, and what have we learned about who this person is deep down? What made them the way they are? And even if this film doesn't go as far as offering a solution, it's still a better start than other films of this time period. Look, I'm not in any way arguing that The Cell is a better movie than Silence of the Lambs or Seven, but what I am saying is that The Cell is more than just this super slick sci-fi crime thriller. There's a deeper theme at play, one that revolves around understanding trauma, not just punishing it. Schrager, he may be too far gone, and he certainly must be punished for his crime, but the other boy, Lopez's patient that we meet at the beginning of the film, he may still be able to be saved. Screenwriter Mark Protacek said while working on the script that he had become incredibly fascinated by serial killers. He said, quote, "I was doing a lot of research about serial killers, and I found that many of them were victims of these extreme abuse when they were children. I was intrigued by the question of whether it was possible to develop compassion for someone who has done terrible, dreadful things, but has suffered their own kind of torture. Or should we not have compassion for a killer because in the end, we all have to be held accountable for our actions?" That is ultimately the uneasy question we're left with at the end of The Cell. Now that we have a bit of context around this killer's action, can we now have compassion for him? Or do we simply just judge someone for the actions that they've done? It's a concept that's taken a while to catch on, but it's one we're starting to see enter the real world, with real life cases like the Menendez brothers now getting a critical second look at the circumstances which led to the brutal killing of their father and mother. In the 90s, when that crime happened, all we could see was the crime. But now it's become a bit easier to look past one action and factor in all the trauma that led up to this place. Maybe The Cell was just ahead of its time, or maybe it was just a bit too weird for those themes to actually resonate, or maybe it was just seen as a weird movie that starred Jennifer Lopez. I'm not making an argument either way as it pertains to the larger question this movie asks. I'm not qualified at all to answer these questions or posit any type of solutions, but I am saying that this weird movie, this super strange flick about entering the depraved mind of a serial killer, got me asking questions that I rarely see asked in films from the 90s or 2000s or even now. A movie starring Jennifer Lopez and Vince Vaughn made me think about the justice system, how we treat foster children, and the importance of caring for the most vulnerable in our society. And it did it all while looking slick as hell with an entertaining story and a thrilling conclusion. Don't hang it in the Louvre, but give The Cell a second look. You might be surprised by what you find.